Hydration is very important. Water is the source of life. Got me Elmer Fudd stuff on. First of all, we're live. It is 7:07, a day after Thanksgiving. Hopefully, everybody had a good day. We did. It was awesome. And thank you for all the well wishes on Thanksgiving, which was very, very cool. Obviously, everybody, we all overdid it, which is good. But we're back to cars now. And tonight, I want to talk about project cars and why even a free car that somebody would give you as a project car, if somebody just came and said, hey, look, I got this very cool project car, you could have it. Why a lot of times you should just say, I'm going to pass on this, a hard pass. And that's because project cars come in a lot of different, let's say, financial levels. If you have all the money in the world and you can do whatever you want, that's awesome. But the vast majority of us are not that. So let's look at some scenarios where somebody, like, anything from somebody walked up and gave you a free car, and why a lot of times, first of all, it's not free, and why sometimes it's way more expensive for them to give you a free car because of all the things that go along with it. So if somebody were to come up and say, hey, I have this, whatever it is in the thumbnail, it's a truck, it could be anything, any kind of car, they're not going to, first of all, to start things off, they're not going to walk up and give you here is a numbers matching 1970 LS6 Chevelle. They're not going to do that. They're going to give you some ratty piece of junk, which, if you know us, that's our jams. I mean, that's what we look for. So that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not going to be a classic Chevelle. It's not going to be a 944 turbo. It's not going to be a Spitfire. It's not going to be a turbo RX-7, a third gen. It's going to be something else. But whatever it is, usually it's something that we want. I mean, heck, I walk through a wrecking yard and go, oh yeah, I want that one. I want that one. I want that one. All of those little puppies need to come home with me. But here's why a lot of times, even if somebody walked up and said, hey, here's this thing, here's this car, here are the problems with that. So you need to look at all of the things that go along with this. So whatever this vehicle is, the first thing you need to look at it is, okay, let's assume I can get this thing working because I'm mechanically able. I have the wherewithal mechanically I have the intelligence, I have the experience, I have whatever, the shop, I have what it takes to get this thing working on the road. So let's look past that, because that's, we just, when we're looking at a project, we go, oh, okay, look, I totally could make that work, because we're all overconfident in our ability, or maybe we have the ability. But then the problem is our short-sightedness. We don't look beyond that. You go, okay, what happens after that? You're like, all I got to do is pour transmission fluid in there and spin it around. The thing's locked up. I get it unlocked. Maybe got to do a Super Ritchie razor blade rebuild. That I can take the head off. I could fix the timing belt. I could fix the 3 bent valves in it. I can put this all back together, and this thing will run like a top. That's fantastic. We're going to get to all of that in just a minute, but let's go beyond that. Let's take the next step beyond that. Let's say we got it running. Okay, we got it running. Now what? Okay, now you need to essentially buy it and register the car in your name. So these kinds of cars, what I've found, because I've been looking for little cars looking for a little car to buy so that I can run this AMR 500 supercharger on it. But they all have associated problems. And the problems in our case are never insurmountable ones. One of them is, this thing runs great, except one of the gears doesn't work. Okay, well, if it was just a situation where in the transmission, I didn't have 4th gear, so I had to skip shift 3rd to 5th, which, by the way, I have done in a Honda application and drove it for years like that with no problems. But if it's just that would be okay. I would rock a car that has only, 4 of the working 5 gears. Problem is that whatever made that other gear not work is probably still rattling around in there, and will make itself known at whatever the most inopportune time is. So if somebody reached in and grabbed that thing and pulled it out and said, okay, there's no more fourth gear in it, and there's also nothing else that's going to hurt the transmission the rest of the way, that would be okay. But that's not probably what's going to happen. But let's say that you got it working, it was okay. But the thing is, the other thing we need to first look at is the first thing you should ask somebody, and this is the first thing you ask somebody whether you're getting the car for free or you're buying the car super cheap, is when was the last time this car was registered? And are there any back fees? So if you get a free car or got a car, I would sell you this car for $100. Everybody can afford $100 for a car. That's a fantastic deal. That's great. Except it has $1,500 or $2,000 worth of back fees on it. So what you have to do then is let it sit for long enough where all those go away. So you have those options. You have either, okay, now I can't really drive it legally on the street. I have to let it sit until whatever time elapsed in your state that allows those things to just fall off, go by the wayside, be written off essentially. Or you go in and register and get the surprise. You're like, yeah, I got this thing running. This is awesome. Okay, great. This would be $1,800 in back fees. You're like, that's my free car. My free car now is an $1,800 car, plus whatever the things are that you had to do. So that's very important. Make sure that there are no outstanding, and luckily you can look at a lot of the stuff online. Make sure there are no outstanding parking tickets or warrants, or that the car wasn't stolen, or that the car doesn't have all these back fees. It's very important. So look that up. Now we need to talk about the things that you have to do to fix the car. Somebody gives you a free car. Okay, it doesn't run. Okay. Now you're mechanically inclined because that's why you got the car to begin with. And that's why your friend, sought you out so that they knew that you were a fixer. You're a fixer-upper. You can make things work. Okay, great. Now you have your free car. Okay. Now you have to figure out, okay, you have to do a little math here. What is it going to cost to fix the car? If this is just like mechanical ability, like all you have to do is something simple, like maybe the carburetor's not working, or maybe there's a fuel injector that's not working, or it has a bad fuel pump, or something easy. Maybe it's got a dead battery, and then you're all golden. You put a battery in it, the thing fires up, you're good. Maybe the solenoid is bad. Maybe it's something that's really, really easy that you know of that you could fix, and all of a sudden you've hit a home run, you've got a free car, there are no back fees on it. That's awesome. It doesn't always work like that. What happens if you get something and, okay, well, it broke the timing belt? Good. The particular car that you got for free is not what we would call a free revving motor. So that means that if it spins over, it doesn't ever hit the valves. It hits the valves. So now a timing belt has become cylinder head work. You at least have to fix the valves. It might be all of them, but usually it's some of them. You have to fix the valves. You have to get new valves or use valves for ones that were all hit when they contacted, when it was spinning, when the valves weren't in sync with the pistons going up and down. When the valves going up and down, they went at the wrong times, and so it bent a bunch of valves. If it just nicked the valves and bent them a little bit, and now they just don't seal, dude, that's an easy fix. That's just a parts thing. And that's a junkyard parts thing. You can go to the wrecking yard, maybe just take a head off if it's easier. Take that head off and put it on and get it running. And then you're out the time plus the head gasket that you're going to have to replace, unless you're going to reuse it, which some guys do. Put the new head on, some oil, maybe some spark plugs or whatever, get running, and that's good. Okay, so, or what also can happen, this is the thing that you have to look at, when the valves hit the pistons, one or two of them hit big enough where they didn't just bend the valve. They jammed the valve up into the cylinder head and also into the piston. So you either have now valve notches in the pistons where valve notches don't go, or you have broken pistons. So they've given you a free car that now, in this case, if it had a broken piston, would need a motor, or it would need, at the very least, a new piston. unless it broke the valve head off, jammed it in the piston, and then if it broke a cylinder or broke the head, you have to look at all that stuff and go, look, this person's given me this and I can fix it. Even if that means me taking this motor out and putting another junkyard motor in and getting it, driving around, you can do that. But then obviously your free motor your free project car is not a free project car anymore. So then you have to look at, okay, here's the time and energy and money that I have to spend making it work. After I've done that, is that car that valuable? So they gave you a free car. I've put $500 into it with various things. And now I have a $250 car that I just put $500 into. Do you see what I'm talking about? In most cases, if you're able to fix these things, you'll have something that has more value than that. Even if that value is only your own value. Like there are a lot of things I see that I put value in that others don't share that value, that I might not be able to sell it for. If I had a Chevy Sprint Turbo, its value to me would be way greater than whatever its resale value is according to the Kelley Blue Book. That doesn't matter to me. It has, it has value to me, and that's okay. And whatever the value is, yours or the perceived value out in the marketplace, if eventually you were going to sell it. So if you think about these things in terms of, okay, I'm just going to flip this car. So I got a car, I paid $50 for it, or I got it for free. And now I need to fix either the motor or the transmission. It doesn't work, whatever it is. Okay, you take it all apart. You're like, wow, okay, this thing is going to need a new cylinder head. But luckily, it didn't hit the piston, so I need to get a different cylinder head. I'm not going to get a rebuilt one. I'm going to get a used one from the wrecking yard because I'm going to save money. It still needs a head gasket. Still needs a thermostat because this thing hasn't run for a long time. Still needs a battery. It needs one of the starters is bad. One of the axles is bad. And pretty soon, you're into this thing for a fair amount of money. And if you were just going to sell this thing now the amount of profit that you would make because of the time and money that you'd have to put into it now is very negligible. And then, so what is your time worth? So is your time worth $5 an hour? I mean, you're a pretty good mechanic. You should get paid more than that, right? So you have to calculate all of this stuff. I mean, quite honestly, if we're doing project cars the way that we normally envision project cars, that's that we're doing this as a labor of love. And if you're building some sort of turbocharged LS swapped S10 or something like that, its value to you is going to be greater than its value to the marketplace. We would always put more time and love and effort and money into something without the expectation that, hey, I've just made I just built $150,000 car, because that's the exception and not the rule. Even if you made a really nice S10, it's really cool, but it's way more cool to you than it is to the rest of the people. Some people might think it's cool, but never as cool as you think it is, because this is something that you put your heart and soul into, and they didn't do that. So they will not have that attachment. They may think, oh, great, that's an S10, which is cool. It's got a turbo LS in it, which is also cool. But they didn't spend all of the nights, all of the weekends, away from their family doing all of the stuff. They didn't sacrifice all that stuff. So they don't have the same thing invested into it that you do. So it's very important. So when you're going through these projects and deciding what to do, make sure you take that stuff into consideration. It's hard. A lot of times we just like, oh yeah, I definitely want that, because that's your first reaction to everything. But step back, and I'm guilty of that when I go look at a car. Usually if I see a car and I go look at it, I'm going to get it. I've already convinced myself that it's the greatest thing in the world. And it shouldn't be like that, because I know a thing or two about cars, and I should examine them much more thoroughly than I do. And the same thing with the motors at the wrecking yard. I just go see one and I go, oh yeah, I definitely want that one. Well, so much so that I bought a big block Chevy with a broken crankshaft. And I know, and I'm better than that. Apparently I'm not better than that. But you would think that I would be. So it's very important when you're doing this stuff, take a look at all of the things that you're going to have to, and be realistic about the expenses. Oh, those gaskets are $12. They're not $12 anymore. They're a lot more than $12. Be realistic about the time and money that you have to spend on it. And don't be afraid to go look. That free car, I'm going to pass. Basically, what they want to give you is something that they would otherwise have to pay somebody to tow away. Now, if you're the guy and you can fix it and it's cheap and it's a home run, there's also that. And unfortunately, that's usually the direction that we're all looking when we do it. Okay, let's see how everybody's doing and how they had a happy Thanksgiving and all that. Hopefully, we got Christmas coming up. We got all sorts of fun stuff coming up. Who's got free trucks up in here? free cars need work that costs money, usually a lot. And what'd you do with the Pontiac 350? I still have it. It's in my storage. It's still running, working. And now I have a Torque Storm supercharger for it, which I am also going to run on the Trophy 4-cylinder. Why do I think you're talking about Chad? I had this exact conversation with Chad, and that's the first thing that I said to him. And this was while Chad, he had me on FaceTime when when they had just got the Chevette running. And so they had it at the shop, and all the guys around it, they had just got it running, and we were putting a fuel injection and stuff on it. They're like, "Oh, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be good." I said, "Chad, you got a free car." I said, "You're about to sink like way more money into this free car than had you just bought a car that would be like that car, except that it's working." And that's something I never talked about in all of this, is that we go for the good deals. We go for the free cars or the $100 cars or the $500 cars, and then end up spending the amount of money or more than the amount of money had we just bought a car that had all of the things. And that's the problem. Is it just needs this and this and this and this. Well, yeah, but if you add up all of the thises, you could have just bought a car that had all that was running, that was working, and you didn't have to do any of the work. Yeah, but it was more. I know, but you're going to end up spending more. Yeah, but I'm going to be doing it over a period of time, so it's okay. And yeah, exactly. Chad and the Chevette are a perfect example of that. 5.3 Envoy with 9 psi oil pressure. Yes, that's good. Reloading. You got cam questions. Good. Hit me with it. I have a guy that wants to give me a 1975 Buick Skylark if I pick it up off of his property. So that's a thing that could be amazing, and it could be the fact that you're a towing company and you're just going to take it away for him. Never buy a cheap Corvette. I would agree with that. Although I did buy a Tri-Power 69 Corvette cheap, and it worked out really well, but that was a long time ago. Free car equals $100 scrap price. Yep. Brake, suspension, rust, all of that stuff. And that's the thing. You don't know when you get this free car, especially if it hasn't been running for a really long time. But even the person that you're getting it from doesn't know anything about it. Because if they knew a lot about cars, they'd already be fixing it if it was fixable. So they probably know enough to know that it's not fixable, and that all of these other things are definitely suspect. Because if you have a car and you get it running, it needs to have brakes. Suspension, are all the shocks bad, or just a couple of them? Have they rusted all the way through? Are the mounts gone? Are there some serious issues that are going to require back fees in California? That's right. I didn't get it for free, but I bought a $1,500 El Camino. It drives, but it's not going to be cheap to get it real roadworthy. Okay. It drives. It sounds like it's roadworthy already, right? A lot of cup cars only have second and fourth gear. Yep. And those do pretty well, right? Yard art. Yeah. Get a friend in the next state over. That's why I love 89 OBS Sierra. I do an LS swap on it. The back fees in New Hampshire don't have that. It's different in different states. What about liens? Can you do anything if a person didn't tell you? I mean, I think you could take them to court for that. But I think that also the person that has the lien, or the company that has the lien, is also going to have to be involved in that. Call it lien on the title. Yep. My 2007 just became my project. I got a 6-layer aluminum I asked you about the other day. Found the block says 12577461. When I looked it up, it says L76, but rec port heads. Mine came with 243 heads. Cathedral did some come with 243s. So it's not, that's an old vehicle. So somebody definitely could have swapped those. LS461 aluminum block. Let's see. Yeah. In Texas, they don't care if you don't register for decades as long as you don't drive it during that time and get a ticket. Yeah, California makes you just file a non-op for it, and it's a similar thing. You can, as long as you don't drive it and it's non-op, that's fine. Yeah, and you did forget modular power. That's right. Back fees are a lot of reasons nice cars go to the junkyards. I had to pay $500 in back fees for my $500 Explorer. See? Make sure to hydrate. I cheap sold my wife's Buick GS. Thought it had a rod knock. Kid that bought it told me later it was a loose torque converter bolt. That happens. It happens to all of us. Sentimental value. That's right. Alan Burns looked like I might have a 5.3 in the works. We'll get my 862 heads, chop a copper cam, possibly flat top pistons, which would make it an iron block L33. So my impact died. It caused a wheel off incident because I didn't catch it. Uh-oh. In other words, is anyone hiring in the West Texas area? Were you a tire guy at a race and that happened, Admiral? Is that what you're saying? Is a Pontiac 350 for sale? If so, how much? The Pontiac 350 that I have, it might be for sale after I'm done. Going through this on a $400 89 Taurus SHO. Those are cool. I've been sitting for 12 years. I couldn't let it get junk. It doesn't need a lot, but it all adds up. That's right. And on specific things, specialty things like an SHO Taurus that might be harder to find, or any BMW. stuff gets expensive. Let's see. When new cars cost 50 grand. Being roughneck whipping chains, yeah, that doesn't seem like it's a good existence. Got a 6-liter Vortec Crew for $500 on Thanksgiving. That's nice. If you get a 300, the M90 should find its way onto it. The 300 inline 6-cylinder, you mean? That would be a good application for it. My $200 Carmen Ghia cost me a fortune. Yep, I could see that happening. Should I get Vortec HO or Vortec Max badges after getting the fresh engine? Put ZL1 on it. Got a free Saturn SL1 standard trans. Went to 3 diff shops for no start condition. Then sat for 3 years. Turns out it was just a insecurity mode. Reset it and the car ran great. That's a nice score. There are some home runs like that. Reloading the cam question is a long one. Okay. The worst is a car guy giving away a car. Exactly. Because he's figured it out. He's already done the math. So you should be leery of that. About like my 4.8, just going to throw it on with boost, pull the oil pan off. Now we're rebuilding it. Yeah. Had to go to the bank to pay off liens. Yep. For the cam question, with the heads I have, I'm afraid of getting too big of a cam. Your cam consideration should be, where do I want to make power? Don't equate the cam lift with the valve lift from the cylinder head flow. Here's a free motor. Never going to use it. You can have it. Ran last time I cranked it. Just walk away as quick as you can. I know, Admiral, it does. Doesn't it make you want to go? And the problem with Facebook Marketplace is that I'm just going to go on there and look real quick. And then you look up and you're like, it's tomorrow. Ramon Park 30 years ago. Yep. Bought an 04 Chevy Suburban for $800. But I did put $2,500 in it. Yep. Had more fun replacing rocker panels. Yep. Still enjoying it. A lube line tech at a local dealer, brand new truck for the 5,000 mile tire rotate. Oh, yeah, that's not good. Do you, Admiral, when you guys run them in with a gun, do you hit them with a torque wrench to verify the number? Or do you have like torque sticks? There's an old joke. Michael, there's an old joke. There's nothing more expensive than a cheap BMW. Exactly. I've been down that road before. Oh, you want that sensor? Yeah, those are like $4,000. No, I don't need the whole car. I just need the sensor. Yeah, that's it. Good afternoon, Richard. I'm normally sending support from Victor Harbor, South Australia, but I'm on holiday. It's 1:29 p.m. here in Cairns, Queensland. Okay, cool, dude. Down under. With the rapid CFM drop off after 500, does a cam that has a peak power at higher engine speed oversaturate the port and lose its potential? Say maybe a cam with two. No. The cam lift is not related to engine RPM. You can think about what short track motors do. Think about what low lift cams with lots of duration do. Think about what factory cams, the Duntov cam, low lift cams with lots and lots of duration. They run lots of RPM, even with limited head flow, which those particular small blocks do. My neighbor tried to give me a 1977 BMW 320 for free. The best case scenario for the free motors like that is if it's something you're swapping something else into, and you're like, that's great. It's a good looking car. It has the sheet metal on it or whatever. It has wheels and tires. And I don't care if it runs. That's perfect. Because then you just, hey, I'm putting a V8 in there anyway. So it works out. Just bring the Pontiac 350 with you when you go to the car farm and get the Omni and drop it off in Toledo. Yeah. I'm not driving out there, though. I think I'm flying out there to get it. Turns out my impact couldn't tighten more than 50 foot-pounds after 5 seconds the next time I tested. Unfortunately, this was after I signed my resignation. Okay. Best thing to do if it's free and drives is do basic maintenance. Yeah, that's always a good idea. At least check that stuff. Check and see if it has coolant in it. Does the motor, like, that's one thing we look at even for the wrecking yard motors. Did the thing have coolant in it at least? I mean, is it, if you open the radiator and it's just full of rust, you're like, oh yeah, this is probably not good. Doing some underfloor wall and roof insulation for a guy. My engineering business in 2014. You wanted to pay me by giving me a Rover Sterling. It's like selling a $10,000 debt. Exactly. Facebook marketplace standard practice: wet it down with a water hose and makes it look nice. Gives it that. Just spray everything with Armor all over it. Newer subs here, L67 supercharged owner here. Good. I have a video coming up where I'm doing ring gap on an L67. That's the one that we're going to do the big bang on. So we're going to put a single turbo on it and wick it up. I was actually told directly not to bother with a torque wrench, no torque stick, just a couple. just hit it with the impact. Huh? Freya, you have a mid-turn slight understeer. So what is the turn in? Is the turn in okay? And it transitions to understeer, turning to a lot of oversteer. So what's happening with the pedals while you're doing this? Are you transitioning from, are you trail braking? Are you transitioning, like if you're trail braking deep enough, oversteer, you might think that would be happening. And if this is a front wheel drive car, it'd be very unusual for you to have an oversteer condition. Usually fighting the understeer is going to be the issue with a front wheel drive car. Should I gasket match, port match them to the same size? Edelbrock TRX has different size. The TR2X has different size ports. Should I gasket match and port them? Or is this supposed to be different like that? You mean the intake manifold itself? They're different in the intake manifold? I don't know if that I've ever seen that. Reloading, the ports aren't unstable. Just because lift doesn't continue to go up, or that it would even go down after that lift point, doesn't mean that you can't run a cam that's higher than that lift. We do that all the time. Most LS applications are the peak lift is at 600 lift, and we run cams that are more than 600 lift on LSs all the time. So that's very common practice. So that's not a problem. I bought a basket case E46 because the chassis was solid and almost rust-free. I like those cars. Golden Valley, what's going on? E46 is super overrated. The E36 is the same design, just smaller. I like the E36 too, but I would like to swap either one of those with an aluminum LS. Like to see an in-depth video on pump gas, turbo limitations, expectations, max boost. Make sure to do all of my braking pre-turning, as a car doesn't like to trail brake. I carry speed neutrally using throttles to maintain but not accelerate. Turn in is good. I'm still curious as how you get a front wheel drive car to oversteer, because I've raced a lot of Hondas and stuff, and oversteer is not usually the thing. I mean, usually we'd have to induce that on purpose by doing something really dumb and to get it to do that. And then I could drift the car around if we wanted to do that. That's obviously a slow way to do it, and it's very hard on tires. But that's not usually the way that front wheel drive cars work. Pontiac 350s hit an all-time high, selling for $1,100. Nice. Tunnel Ram is weird. It's big and small. It has big and small runners. They're trying to make up for good and bad port on the big block Chevy. I think I think people that talk about that make way too much about that. One thing I'm worried about is the camber in the rear is too extreme under loading, causing the issue. So under heavy braking, if you're lifting the rear up, what does the camber curve look like? Do you know what the camber curve looks like? What's the rear suspension on this car? Is it a big beam? Is it a strut? Is it a A-arm? What is it? Are you still able to get dormant LS6 manifolds? I don't know. I haven't looked for one of those in a long time. We can talk up the 301 and the 326 next. Yeah, that would be good. What I want to do is build an HO version of the 350. A 326 would also be cool, but the E36 is the realest M car. It's meant looking, running, and driving supercharged 3800 Series 3 car for sale, 3,000 local. He used to part out E36 M3s. Are you kidding me? That's sacrilegious. The main topic was project cars. Fast Hippo. Dean, I'm still interested in Pontiac 301s. Guys are building and racing them in first gen Firebirds running low 12s. All motor. On a Pontiac 301, all motor? What heads and stuff are they putting on there? Just better Pontiac heads? Understeer for sure and torque steer, but oversteer is a lot to ask of a front wheel drive car. I agree. Nissan Sentra and Alfa Romeo and 33 front wheel drive cars can oversteer. I've driven a lot. I've driven Sentra SERs and stuff, and I like those. But let's see. Yeah, the first gen is the one that I like. Dean, the old HO Racing Pontiac with Ken, and Ken built the record-setting 326 Pontiac V that ran 9s in the quarter. I've heard some of the head porters like Eric mentioned that sometimes the port with high velocity can become unstable at high airspeed assistance with higher RPM. I honestly, I think that you're worried about a lot of stuff that's not stuff. You just need to put a camshaft in there and not worry about it. Aluminum aftermarket heads on the 301. Okay. Keep in mind, Pontiacs use cast iron rods, not steel. Just found a Chrysler 300. Runs great. Needs number 7 intake valve. How does it run great without one of the intake valves? I know they have drifting events in Japan with front wheel drive cars. I've seen it done on Hondas and stuff, and I can do that in my I could do that in my Del Sol, but like I said, it's not fast. These ball rear tires and throw the camera so nothing is really giving good contact. Yeah, if you put this much contact patch in the back, have a terrible camber curve, pump up the rear tires. Runs great. Needs an intake valve. I know. Be like me unseizing engine and saying the same thing. I need an evaluation and overall shot for the rotating assembly. The little 301 Pontiac sounds like a Pontiac 400. Yeah. Pontiac swap BMW would be cool. Rear suspension is a single wishbone with a strut and tow bar. Okay. Did Pontiac never had aluminum blocks, did they? Those are only aftermarket ones. CB axles don't like drifting. My buddy Jimmy found out that the NSX axles also don't like wheel hop. Clean looking and driving 01 Civic with a stick for 2,300. They didn't make a good Civic after 2000. That's right. I said it. Although a new Type R is pretty cool. It's pretty fast. Working toward a Pontiac 455 and a Gen 3 Firebird. I got the car 3 weeks ago. Original Formula 350. Oh, good. So Formula 455. So I got to get some kind of pole up here, right? Hey, were you ever offered a free or cheap project car? Because you're all car guys. You get that stuff. The new FC5 is pretty cool and turbo finally. I know Honda has needed turbos on stuff for a really long time. I didn't know you're a Honda guy. Yeah, I wrote several books on Hondas and even set land speed records in a Honda. We went 227 in that car. The world's fastest Honda Civic, in fact. Road raced Del Sols and Civic SIs. You check under the rear tires of the front wheel drive for lunch trays. That's the funnest thing in the world. Everything in between was junk. The RSXs wasn't horrible. Yeah, mostly because of the motor, but the RSXs were fun. I was offered 243 heads, but I have 862s. If it's on a 4.8 or a 5.3, I think you're probably good with what you have. In other exciting news, I finally got my Gen 6 454 pulled out of the truck that was in a field. It was a pain. I could not get the transit engine separated. Good thing the neighbors had a skid steer. It's probably heavy with both of them together. I'm seeing that car in magazines. Yep. It was famous for several weeks. Yeah, this one was a B series. This one was I was running in G, blown gas comp coupe, and we ran other classes too that we set records in. That car's been over 200 many, many times. I got me a 200 mile an hour red hat, and then got the guy that I sold it to, John, him and his two sons both got set 200 mile an hour records. So they got 3 of them. And then also Road and Track, Sam Matani, famous author now, he went over 200 in it and set a record and got a red hat. So that car's set a lot of records. Back in the early 90s, I could have bought a 1970 Shelby GT 500 for $800. Anything on the glove box, if it's signed by Shelby, is worth more than $800. Why do K series sound so bad? RSX was the Integra replacement. Yep. I really like the original Type R Integras. VTEC and Turbo VTEC is even better. 97 Cobra with the blown trans. Sorry, Admiral's reading us. He's perusing Facebook Marketplace. Nice pull. My daily was free. Fixed the heat last night. 72 220D 4-speed. Nice. You're building an iron L33? Did you work on Project Sipper, the 92 Civic VX Hypermiler build? No, but I did have I had my own Civic VX that I ended up giving to my buddy Chad, which I drove for years down at West Tech. And we got that thing up to 56 or 57 miles per gallon. I wasn't doing hypermiling, but we did a few things to it to, tire size and alignment and injector spray pattern and mirrors and, a couple of, and belly pans and things. Cherry picker on plywood. On plywood doesn't mix well, yeah. Front 2mm toe out, 3 degrees camber. I'm sure that's negative, right? Camber rear is 0. Toe out is 1.5. Camber. Tire temps are a little hotter than the center. 20 degrees on the outside of the rears after 3 laps. How is the front to rear tire temperature? Got a free camper van with 50,000 miles on it. After complete interior gut and rebuild, mechanical starter, brakes, transmission, power steering hoses, cop tires, cop suspension. Saw that car in the magazine back in the day. Yeah. Yep, it was. It did make the rounds. It was at the SEMA show and stuff. My wife was a SEMA model back then for that car. The RSX is an Integra everywhere else. Yeah, that's right. I remember getting excited about getting my 100-mile-an-hour club sticker. Yep. LC9, 4 LQ4s, and 3 4L80E transmissions for sale. Would 823 heads benefit from a set of LS7 rockers? They won't fit on that. That 1.8 rocker won't work on the LS7. I mean, on the LS3 head. The where the LS7 rocker mounts relative to the valve is different on the LS7 head. You can't upgrade that. You have to get actual aftermarket LS3 rockers unless you re-drill it. How does one break a crankshaft? I don't know. It can't be good, right? They had to have seized something up. Brakes, belt, hoses, lights, repairs, batteries. Yeah, $10,000 for my free camper is a rolling project. That's it. Cobra T56, $1,200 on eBay. Nice 6-speed. Project Sipper wasn't a hypermiler. They didn't use teardrop body mods. Those help a lot. If you can taper the back, especially on a hatch, it's it doesn't have a good and the rear is a critical thing for you want that to taper back to get rid of the low pressure area back behind the car. That helps with aero a lot. Richard, I'm waiting for some info. The engine is being built fresh. I may consider getting some flat tops, so it might be slightly better than the L33 due to the 862s. Yeah, I don't, guys that are arguing about and I know that I'm responsible for that, but guys that are arguing about an 862 or 706 and a 243 or 799, you're just wasting your time arguing about that. It doesn't matter. Just if you have whatever you have, like I would never take, like on the L33, I would never replace the 799s with 862s or 706s. And on an LM7, I would never replace the 706s or 862s with 799s. I wouldn't go through that trouble for whatever minimal change it would be. Did you ever know or meet Chuck Seitzinger back when he was racing his red Civic with flames? The name sounds really familiar, but I don't remember him. When I was running I did Motorola Cup. I was going to say Escort Endurance, but it was after that Motorola Cup, and then US Touring, and with the Civics. thoughts on welding a crankshaft back together? I don't do diesel stuff. 1 liter Mafia. I like it. Let's see. Do you think peak torque numbers would be much different between the 220 at 50 cam and a 236 cam with the decent heads on a 454? I know the peaks will be at different RPMs. They might not be dramatically different at different RPMs. And you might find that a 236 cam has a higher peak torque than a 220 cam. Oh, than a 230 cam? Yeah, that 236 is a pretty big step up. I can look and see what the 274 or the 276 and then the 282 or 280, whatever big block cam is. Because I think we ran both of those, but I think that they're real comparable in their power. $3,800. Yeah, I can't find the 281 right here. Just really quick. I think most of the difference that you'd see between those two cams, between a 220 and a 230 cam, are going to be way down low, where you're not going to like the bigger cam as much. I got a free Taurus for my cousins around the turn of the century. Had a brand new transmission. It sat at a very rural house for years, and the rodents chewed. Yeah, they do chew the wiring. There's no doubt about that. Front is a lot hotter, about 130 to 160 on 80 day rears are 110 to 140. That's as hot as the tires are getting. I would pay to see you do a nitrous test, but with O2. So you want to do pure oxygen? That's not a good idea. Pure oxygen is really, really volatile. It's very flammable. Let's see. Using a twin scroll on a V6, I don't think you can achieve the overlap benefits correct, like on a 4-cylinder due to plumbing. Using a twin scroll turbo on a V6? 421 has a new variation on was a new variation on the 389 and became the 428. TMD was developing some aluminum race engines, but the 421 was iron. I'm building a 6-liter 30 over with an F1 charger. It would be necessary to do forge crank on my horsepower goal is 1,000. The stock crank on a 6-liter will go way past 1,000 horsepower. Had a handful of free cars, which usually cost me something in the end. That's what happens. Just got a build done. Building a 5.3 gap rings, 6.5 multiplier. Melter motor using Pure O2. Jason, guys use twin scroll turbos on V8s. I don't know why you wouldn't be able to do that with a V6 also from one side and the other of the V6. Thanks for trying to look it up. In some of your tests, I've seen the AFR heads make really good power on the whole curve, but peak numbers were not as good as other heads in the test. I don't remember seeing an airflow research head being down compared to another head in any of the tests that I've done. I've got a 2010 Hyundai Sonata with a blown motor, which I do. Are you thinking about selling it, or what are you doing? You could go get another. You should be able to find another motor for that in the wrecking yard if you want to do that. Carl only weighs 1460. Do you know what the Freya do? If I'm pronouncing that correctly, do you know what the weight distribution is in the car? These peanut port heads, I'm wondering if that may be the same situation. Would like to take advantage of that. What is it you want to take advantage of? Surely it would show gain. Just start at low pills with O2 and keep going till it melts. Why would you think that it would gain power over nitrous oxide? Because the thing that's burning is the oxygen. You're just separating it in a compound in a much safer, better way. So my situation, if those 243 heads were swapped onto the aluminum 6-liter, would they work, or should I just try finding a set of 823 heads? I think that's what it came with. I have videos up of 243 heads or 799 heads versus rec port heads, and a rec port head makes more power than a 243 head does. No 2.2 updates. Took my dad's old 88 F-150 with an inline 6, put in a little 302, a GG40 heads. That'll be good. V8 swap. On a 4-cylinder application, a cylinder that fires first and a cylinder that fires third will be teamed on one scroll. Yeah, no, I understand that. But what you're doing is you're taking half of the pulses going to one side of the turbo and half the pulses going to the other, and then you're pairing the cylinders. In my opinion, the paired cylinders aren't going to do nearly as much as the divided housing and having half of the cylinders go to one, half of them going to the other. That's my opinion. What time tomorrow, Michigan or Ohio? It's actually California time. It's Pacific Standard Time at 7. And I probably will be in the morning too. $5364 LS head. I don't know what a $5364 LS head is. I don't recognize that casting number. 5842. Can't remember the corner weights. Yeah, I don't. $364 LS head casting. Is that a Recport head? All of the Recport heads are going to do the same thing. I have people can argue with me about different valve weights and things like that. We could talk about that, but the Recport, the castings are going to flow about the same and make the same power. No. Or the early Recport casting. Yeah, it's not. It works like all the other ones. It works like the 821, the 823. Oh, James, your poll question is blank again. 73%. Were you ever offered a free or cheap project car? We're going to end that poll because it is time to go. Apparently, they were LS3 heads. I'm still looking for iron LS 6-liter heads. Iron 317s, whatever the casting number is. Somebody let me know if they have those. If they do, send me an email or something. And I will see you guys all tomorrow. Bam, 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 bam.